BJ, not only are we lucky enough to be joined in this week's game preview by the consensus nicest guy in NFL media in Charles Davis, but you're also on the call this week. We get to hear you on Fox broadcasting the game. Charles, we appreciate your time, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, BJ. It's always great to talk with you, and you say such kind words to me. I appreciate them. I'm not sure if everyone else will agree, but I'll take it coming from you, that's for sure. Looking forward to seeing KC, that's for sure.
Appreciate it. Well, we want to know what you think about this matchup. 2 of the 8 remaining unbeaten teams in the NFL squaring off there at Ford Field in Detroit. What are you looking forward to most about this matchup?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing, frankly, how Detroit handles it, because I don't think anyone coming into this season had Detroit at undefeated, let alone 2-0-1. Now, we thought they might win at Arizona. I don't know many people that thought they would beat the Chargers, even at home. And I'm pretty sure almost no one thought they'd beat the Eagles, even with the Eagles beat up. Yeah. So this is a great start for them. They handled some big moments last year. If you remember, they beat New England at home, pounded them, a big win for Matt Patricia. Yeah. But overall, it was a 6-10 season. But it feels different in Detroit already. It feels like, guys have grasped on to who Matt Patricia is. We make a lot about the New England way and bringing in, Danny Amendola and bringing in Trey Flowers. But it's bigger than that. He brought in guys who weren't New England guys who were winners as well. Justin Coleman was a New England guy who's also a Seattle guy. He brought in Jesse James from Pittsburgh, who used to go into the playoffs every year. When you start adding in guys like that, plus your middle linebacker, second-year kid named Jared Davis, totally buys into you and what you're doing, it starts to spread through the locker room. I think we're starting to see that happen for Matt Patricia.
I think you hit the nail on the head with one of the storylines for the Chiefs all offseason has been knowing they were going to be good and knowing they were going to take every other team's best shot, and that they're kind of going to be a measuring stick for a lot of teams like the Lions right now, like you said, who you don't know what kind of start they were going to get off. I'm sure in that building they were confident about what they were going to do, but I think you're exactly right. And they opened some eyes with their wins over the Chargers and Eagles. But to get into this matchup a little bit, we're going to start with Patrick Mahomes, because everything that we do pretty much starts with Patrick Mahomes. But you're the Detroit Lions. You played on the defensive side of the ball. Just how do you try and slow this team down, or at least disrupt them just enough to give yourself those extra possessions you're going to need to put enough points on the board to stay with them?
Well, the immediate answer is always that snarky, snippy answer. You pray a lot, right? Or you hope their bus breaks down, or, things like the crazy part is all that's true. Now, let's talk about what we try and do practically, right? Number one, you create rubble in the running game. I know Andy Reid will throw the ball like crazy, but he wouldn't mind being able to run it and take some pressure off of different people. I think Cam Irving at left tackle, it'd be nice for him not to have to pass protect 50 times if he can help it. Not because he can't, but it's just, Cam's been everywhere. He's been a center. He's been a guard. He's been a left tackle. He's still the backup center. So you try and take some of that off of them if you can. But it's going to be hard to move people because Damon Harrison, Snacks Harrison in the middle, Ashawn Robinson from Alabama, they don't move very easily. And turning on the game tape and watching the game against Oakland, when you blitzed them in the second quarter, but you didn't run the ball very well. Jonathan Hankins kind of had his way in there. That's a concern. Now, if you're going to deal with the receivers out wide, you've got to have people who can cover, and that's one of the biggest statements that I can make. But what I mean by that is you got to have guys who can cover and do it different ways. You've got to be like a baseball pitcher and change speeds, change your alignments, change your looks. Sometimes you come on, put your hands on them. Sometimes you back off and bail. Sometimes you catch them at 5 yards. Sometimes you back off farther. You blitz them. You got to do a variety of things, hoping something will pop and spring free. Yeah. Because if you just play static, you and I both know that young guy. I've called Drew Brees artificial intelligence, AI, because during a game he just takes the input, and by the end of the game he strangles you with your own stuff. Yeah. Mahomes is the same way, even though he's just 24 years old. And with Andy running it, Eric Bieniemy, that's what you get.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you what the most impressive thing that you've seen from, because everybody can get caught up under the highlights. And if somebody played the game, you studied the game, what are the things that impress you when you flip the tape on and you see how difficult he is to stop consistently no matter what you try to throw at him?
He's gotten better. I mean, he's a 24-year-old kid that was an MVP and went home and worked. A lot of 24-year-olds that are MVPs go home and party. and maybe show up ready to, and maybe not. One of my great examples, you remember when the Bears were the Bears, the 85 Bears? I don't know if you're old enough for that, BJ, because, you're a youngster. I'm one of those old people,
Little
right?
before, old enough,
Okay,
I remember.
just a little, but you've heard about them, right?
Yes, I've heard about them.
Watch tape.
Yeah.
Those Bears were so dominant, and Jim McMahon was such a free spirit at quarterback, but he made them go. Because the year they won the Super Bowl, he was hurt one game. They weren't going to play him. The offense was stalling. And he inserted himself in the game and changed everything. And they went on and, of course, won the championship. Well, he came back the next year so out of shape, hadn't done anything, and got hurt early in the season. The Bears weren't the same team. See, that's what can happen to you when you have success. With this kid, he went to work, footwork, continuing to read defenses, total understanding of the offense and what people are going to throw at him. And all of those great throws that we get, the wow throws where it's left-handed, it's behind the back, it's cross-handed and all that. We know he practices them, but he also understands when to use them, because anyone who can be that crazy with what he does, and I use that with an affectionate term, should have some interceptions on his list. He's got 0 for the season so far. He understands the right time to do things. Now, someone's going to pick him off at some point. It's got to happen.
Yeah.
But so far, this deep into the season, the way they throw it, no interceptions, this kid's spectacular with his mind as well as with his right arm.
It's been a lot of fun. A lot of people locally here asking him a lot of questions about playing in a dome for the first time. And he seems to be downplaying the whole thing, where some of those receivers want to get out on that turf and see how fast they can get going. But I want to flip to the other side of the ball and just ask you a couple of questions on what you've seen from the Chiefs defense, because around here, all the talk all offseason was about bringing in Steve Spagnuolo and all the defensive changes they've made on the coaching side, and then obviously bringing in Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu and what they've done in just a short time. Just when you flip on the tape of the Chiefs defense, what stands out to you?
Well, look, it's easy to say they've gotten better because, BJ, they couldn't have gotten worse in different ways at times last year. Look, they led the league in sacks, but I looked it up. Tell me if I'm wrong. In the 4 losses, they gave up an average of 41 points per game. Okay, so that tells me 2 things. 1, defense is struggling, but 2, the teams that you're going to have to deal with that are pretty decent, they're going to be like Herb Brooks in the movie Miracle. You're not going to sit back and let Kansas City just say, you have to attack them the same way.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. So now you're talking about the upper echelon people. Baltimore now is proving to be one of those teams. We know New England's one of those teams. If the Chargers get right, they'll be one of those teams. And what do they all have? The ability to attack on offense. And that's what we're going to have to see throughout the season. Now, Kansas City had the Baltimore game well in hand. It was 30-13, I think, at one point. Gave up some touchdowns, and they weren't just cosmetic. And that's what would worry me.
Yeah.
When you get a lead like that, you got to be able to close it out. But I think the first 2 games of the year, they tackled well. I thought last week they didn't tackle as well, but Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards had something to say about that as well. It wasn't just Lamar Jackson. So if I would expect Detroit with that big offensive line to challenge the heck out of them. Remember last week, Detroit, 20 carries for Kerryon Johnson, just 36 yards.
Yeah.
That's not going to cut it. I would challenge the heck out of them and see if they can move the defensive front of Kansas City and try and find some holes and some spaces.
That's a good point. Who's the most important player in this game that nobody is talking about right now?
Most important player in this game that no one's talked to me about right now?
Yep.
Oh, boy. For Kansas City?
Yeah, let's say Kansas City.
For Kansas City, Travarius Ward. I love this kid because I remember him coming out of Middle Tennessee State, and I enjoyed his tape. I called people at MTSU because after Kevin Byard, you better take a look at those Blue Raiders.
Yeah.
And the same scouting report I got on him then, I got on him, going into this season. He just needs confidence. And I think that Spags and his crew have given him that. Some of these guys have to be coached with love. They can't be coached with just, still putting a forearm in their chest. Mm-hmm. I think he's benefited from that. And the reason I bring him up is when you look out wide for the Detroit Lions, Galladay is going to challenge you out on the corner, right?
Yep.
You're going to get challenged, of course, by number 11 there.
Marvin Jones.
Yeah, Marvin Jones Jr.
Yep.
See, I got to get that right. He's going to challenge you, and he had a big game last week. Mm-hmm. I think those guys have to be ready to go, and we know what we're getting other places. You know what you're getting from Fuller. You want to see Ward go ahead and step up in a big game like this, and I think he has more than capability. He's more than capable of doing it.
All right, Charles. Now I know, like I said earlier, the nicest guy, and I'm going to put you on the spot, and I don't mean to do it.
Oh boy,
but
I had nothing to do with the Madden ratings, and congratulations, Patrick Mahomes, now at 99. I don't know what took him so long, but congratulations. I have nothing to do with that.
All right, what about prediction? What have you got to do with that?
Prediction. This game. Well, I'm in the booth for the games. I can never predict that one. I mean, could you imagine me predicting a game and then going up and calling it? And I'd be eaten alive. It's not just the college people. Pro people eat you alive as well. But here's what I will give you. I know everyone's talking about Patrick Mahomes' his first game in a dome in the NFL. Look, he's going to light it up outside or inside. I don't think that changes a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
I will predict that he will not come up and get the 554 yards at Norm Van Rock. How about that? Okay.
There's your take of the day.
That's not a slam on Patrick. It's just that 554 is a whole lot of yards. And I have a feeling Kansas City's going to run it a little more in this game. Just call it a hunch.
All right. Well, there you go. And I would be remiss if I did not mention some sort of Tennessee stat when we were here. So I didn't know if you had a chance to see that last week, Dustin Colquitt became the Chiefs' all-time leader in games played with his 225th career game. So now nobody has played more games in a Chiefs uniform than a former Tennessee Volunteer.
And 443 of his punts inside the 20, another Kansas City record.
There you go.
And I played in college with his Uncle Jimmy.
Yeah,
who also had a big leg.
I knew you'd know the Tennessee stat. You were on your game. As always, Mr. Charles Davis, we appreciate your time as always.
BJ, thanks a ton. I appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday in Detroit.
All right, sounds good. That is Charles Davis. He will be on the call for Fox this weekend. Charles, thanks.